Election Day is Tuesday, November 6th, and CMU Public Broadcasting again brings you Meet the Candidates, the election year series that gives you the chance to meet those seeking state and national office.
Support of WCMU is provided by Flint Institute of Arts, presenting Drawing Together International Cartoons. The exhibition features 300 cartoons from the Iden Doan Foundation International Competition and runs through December 30th. FlintArts.org.
And welcome again to this edition of Meet the Candidates. I'm David Nicholas, and we are joined this time by Suzanne Shumway. She is the Democratic candidate for Michigan's 107th State House District. Thanks very much for taking the time to join us.
It's a pleasure to be here, David.
Our title is indeed Meet the Candidates. It's a chance for incumbents to get reacquainted, new candidates to the office to get acquainted with the voters, and a chance then in our first few moments for you to tell us a little bit about your background and experience that you bring to the campaign.
Thank you. I'm a community college professor at North Central Michigan College in Petoskey. I've been that for 10 years. I am also the president of the union, the MEA unit up there. And this is my first foray into public office. I'm not a career politician. I really think that this is something that every citizen should consider doing when they feel like they can make a difference in governance.
For those that aren't as familiar with District 107 proper, give us an idea, kind of draw the map, if you will, the counties, townships, and so forth that are all included in the district you're running for.
Sure. It goes from, on the southern border, Emmett County, spanning up towards the bridge and across the bridge. It cuts into a couple of townships in Sheboygan County, and then across the bridge it catches Mackinac County and Chippewa County all the way up to Sault Ste. Marie. We're the only district that actually goes above and below the bridge.
So in traveling across that and obviously then several times back and forth across the bridge, what are the issues that you're finding that you would identify as the key main issues for this campaign? Well,
we're pretty far removed from Lansing, which means that we're a rural district and we have special issues that come up in that may not come up in more populated areas. For example, getting children to school is a large cost in a rural area. Poverty manifests itself in different ways in a rural area. So then there are slightly different takes on issues both below the bridge and above the bridge. That separation may not seem to very much to somebody from downstate, but there are slight differences. Not major differences, but just differences in terms of how people look at things. The UP is definitely more rural than the LP, and it's in everybody's interest to work together as fully as possible to get the things in northern Michigan and UP that we need.
What would be then some of the new ideas, the specific initiatives and ideas that you would put forth and want to introduce to look at some of those poverty issues and some of those more specific rural issues if elected to this office?
Well, we have to consider that a great deal of the economic initiatives that we're seeing are coming out of a position of more urban areas, so that we are based, many of the initiatives are based on manufacturing and big corporations. Those things don't really exist in the area that I come from, and they're even less prevalent in the UP above the bridge. So what we need to do is focus on small business, very small business, and agriculture and agriculturally related businesses, as well as ecotourism and leisure activities. Those are the things that are really powering our part of the district, our district, our part of Michigan, and those are the things that I think are going a little bit under the radar, unnoticed down in Lansing.
How then, if it has been unnoticed, underattended to, if you were, what would be some of the specific ideas you would want to raise the radar, raise the awareness, and bring more attention to those economic issues and so forth regarding this more northern part of the state?
Well, the first thing we need is a spokesman who can articulate this point of view clearly and forcibly in Lansing. A person who is willing to go to bat for rural school districts, for example, to argue for equitable funding for schools that is not based on one zip code, but on what a student needs to survive and to succeed in the educational system. Another thing is to promote grants and initiatives for small agriculture and to look at regulation that can impede small business success. Some of that has been done, but with a view towards, agriculture and value-added agriculture, I think that we have a long way to go, as well as new energy production and new types of energy production and development.
Education then first, and several others have brought up this issue of the lack of still, all these years after Proposal A, of the lack of equity in education funding. As we see the landscape of the map now, and you speaking specifically to the smaller districts, those that are at the bottom end of where that base funding is, what do we need to do to improve that education funding, make it perhaps more equitable across the board? Do we scrap Proposal A? Do we come up with a new funding formula? What would be your ideas of how we narrow that gap and create more of a balance across the board?
Well, school funding is very complicated. It's a very difficult, it's a morass of funding streams. And I do think that we need to look back at Proposal A. I do think that we need to re-examine it and simplify it, because right now it's very difficult to find out where the funding is coming from and what kinds of, there's out-of-formula districts and, in-formula districts. Those are all very difficult things to navigate. And I think the first thing we need to do is really examine it with the idea that we can change this, we can make it, we can streamline it, we can make it easier to navigate.
Are those greater concerns in the smaller districts, in the more rural districts, in some that we've seen in districts further north where the geographic area of these districts is much larger than even a more concentrated, albeit with more students in a more urban setting? How do these issues play out when you have the more rural district? What challenges are they proposing on these issues?
That's a great question. I mean, think for a minute of getting your child to school in the middle of winter when gas is over $4 a gallon, which it has been most of the summer above the bridge. That's a very big funding challenge for most schools. And it's a challenge for parents as well if they don't, if they have to drive their child to the bus stop. So that alone, and it's also a challenge beyond the K-12 system. If you go to Head Start and pre-K, that's also a problem where, over 1 in 4 children in the UP lives in poverty. So we have a serious problem here, and I believe a serious disconnect between Lansing and the rest of the state that I would like to address if I get to Lansing, when I get to Lansing.
If we look at then the economic issues that you arranged, it's sort of the similar question in terms of the disproportionate effect of small business or policies, as you said, that have been targeted more towards the larger areas. How you mentioned being the voice for, but what might be some of the specific ways you would want to retool or revamp some of the policies that are in place that would give, I assume what you're looking for, the greater voice to the smaller businesses that would be more prevalent as we get further north?
Well, one thing we need to do is look at regulation and make that simpler. That's usually something that's touted by Republican candidates, but I can see how that would be very important to a small business owner. We need to address healthcare issues because healthcare is a huge cost for small businessmen and women, and we need to modify that so that it becomes easier to hire people and to promote good paying jobs that actually give people a living wage in smaller towns. So those are some of the things that I would be interested in looking at and exploring at in greater detail.
Regulation, tax structure being another. Some have already that have come here have touted the fact that we have been redoing the Michigan business tax after we totally got rid of the single business tax that was in place for so long. What are the small business folks, the owners, and now the potential voters telling you about that amount of how the taxes are applied or the regulation that they are facing? Do they see it as something that is more cumbersome? What are their views on how we best address the amount of that makes all of Michigan, small areas, large areas, small business, large business, the best place to do business for all of Michigan?
Well, I think that the reconstruction of the Michigan business tax is greeted with a good deal of relief on the part of small business owners. However, if we look at where the shortfall is made up, it comes from the schools and it comes from seniors and working families. That's where the money was accrued, specifically the school aid fund, to make it possible to streamline and to give money back to businesses. And what I'm hearing when I go from door to door is that people are very upset about it. Many times they're not aware that their taxes are going to be raised. When they are shown, and literally shown that they will be raised, they get very upset and worried because it's hard to come up with an extra, I don't know, $400 to $3,000 to pay taxes that you haven't ever had to pay before. So while the MBT it was good to redo it, to reconstruct it, at the same time it's not fair to do it on the backs of those who are working hard and struggling already.
What might be a different approach then, where when the message was that the balance, the budget had to be balanced, and there was, and candidates of both sides have acknowledged that these were very large cuts across the board to a lot of areas of the budget to try and bring things back in order. But those that have identified that say we did it the wrong way or we applied some of these cuts in the wrong places, what would be the areas you would want to readdress those to, again, bring perhaps a greater sense of balance back to how that balance was attained?
That's a really difficult question. I'm not going to punt it, but what I am going to say is that it's been close to 50 years since we have looked seriously at adjusting the tax code in Michigan, 1963. And it is time that we create a commission or an advisory board to look at it again and see if we can really adjust it to make it more equitable across the board.
A commission that would be, that this is something, I'll admit, a new suggestion. We have the 16-year votes for whether we reopen the Constitution of 1963. Mm-hmm. Would you propose then a different way to look at that without necessarily going to that constitutional convention?
Yeah, I think that a constitutional convention may be more than I really want to get into at this point. However, I do think that we need to look and see at our tax code and see if it's working for us. In 1963, we had a very strong middle class in Michigan, very strong working class in Michigan. They bore the brunt of the taxes. Now it makes a little sense it makes a great deal of sense to look more at it and to see whether or not we can readjust it so that the wealthier classes are paying more than they have been in the past, because they really, my view is that they're not paying their fair share, and that these working families are really struggling to get the money together to pay taxes.
Yours is the district, the first that we've heard from, where it does go into the area of the Upper Peninsula, and I wanted to give a few more moments before closing thought to the issues you said of poverty. We see the amount that the tourist income helps northern Michigan in particular, but when those tourist dollars slow down in the off seasons and so forth, what effect it does have. Are there areas where people have talked to you about any more economic diversity that can come to that area that you would want to try to work for to create something that's not so dependent on one source of an economic vitality?
Well, I do think that in this day and age, we are always going to be tied to a tourist and leisure and recreational economy in northern Michigan and the UP. I just think that, first of all, it's beautiful there. I really believe I live in the best part of Michigan, and the beauty is unparalleled anywhere in the country. So I think that we capitalize on that, and it makes sense, and it makes economic sense to capitalize on it. And on the other hand, we don't need to consider agriculture as oppositional to tourism. And there are ways where you can combine the two. Farm stands, farm markets are very big, and they're growing. And those kinds of sustainable farms and new farming techniques are really important. There's a wonderful grants that are available through Michigan Land Use Institute that's based in Traverse City, I believe. Those things are really important. And I think that as we go forward, we need to see a new economy emerging that kind of unites both the recreational, the tourist, and the agricultural base, and see where we come out. Because I think that the future is bright if we're ready to work our way towards it.
If and then the final moment, the final 30 seconds or so, you were to take all of what we've had the chance to talk about, lead the voters with one final message of why you would hope they would vote for you in this race, what would that message be?
I think it's that we are in a transitional time, and that the old answers to old problems that plague us are not working anymore. And that I would urge voters to consider new answers and to create new answers and to contact me and their other representatives with those answers, because I believe that we need to take care of each other. We're one big community, and if we work together, we can move through the challenges that lie before us.
Well, thank you very much for taking the time to address all of those to the voters joining us, and good luck with the rest of the campaign.
Thank you.
And thank you, excuse me, for your time and attention once again. Here for Meet the Candidates, our guest has been Suzanne Shumway, the Democratic candidate in the race for the 107th State House seat. All of these segments being sent to our website, posted there at WCMU.org. And a reminder then, too, to get out and use your right to vote on Tuesday, November 6th.
Thank you for joining us for Meet the Candidates. CMU Public Broadcasting invited both major party candidates for this office to participate in this series.
Hello and welcome again to this edition of Meet the Candidates. I'm David Nicholas, and we welcome this time Alan O'Shea. He is the Democratic candidate in the race for Michigan's 101st State House District. Mr. O'Shea, thanks so much for taking the time to sit down with us.
Well, thank you for the invite.
Our program is titled Meet the Candidates, so it's a good chance for, first of all, a little bit of a look into your background, your experience that you bring to the campaign, a chance to introduce yourself to the voters.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I can explain a little bit about myself. I've lived in the 101st District for over 35 years, raised 5 children through the public school system with my wife, Linda. Been in business in Manistee County for all of those 35 years. And you know, during that time, I was a public servant, not only on township, 9 years on as a township supervisor, 8 years as a county commissioner. I actually chaired the Manistee County Commission for 4 of those years, and worked with all the budgetary issues, among other things. And I was a president of a local school board and a treasurer of the ISD, local ISDs. So I've had a good background in local, what you might say, local politics and local public service.
Give us a little idea about the district itself, and when we do that, we sort of call it drawing the map. Lines have been redrawn after the census of 2010 and the redrawing of those lines. But the idea of the counties that this district contains, communities, townships, and so forth, what makes up District 101?
Well, District 101 is made up, and we can call it, for Michigan purposes, the finger counties, because it goes from Leelanau to Benzie to Manistee down to Mason County. So one of the things that's very important and unique is that we are all bordered on the west side by water, and it's just fabulous country. Very difficult to negotiate as a driver, because you've got some 160 miles between one end and the other. It's not like some of the districts in Mount Pleasant or Saginaw, where you can go in and have a pretty nice tight group of 90,000 folks. So a lot of driving, a lot of beautiful scenery, and very few people on the road at times.
And as you have then traveled up and down that coastline in the district, from not only your perception as a candidate for the office, but obviously in talking to the voters themselves, what are you identifying as the prime issues in this campaign?
What I'm, of course, initially when I started way back in February, I had issues and I had reasons why I was looking at running. And so a lot of what I've done is to get out, talk to people, knock doors, get in front of school boards and road commissions, and some of the main issues that I am seeing are almost a very poor lack of communication between our current incumbent and the 101st District. Bills, taxes, and school budgetary things have been passed without discussion or or interaction with people that are in the 101st District. So I would say from a discontent standpoint, that's one aspect. The other aspect, of course, is, we all struggle with trying to find the right inroads to build a jobs program for the 101st, not for Lansing or Detroit or Kalamazoo or even Traverse City, but for the 101st. So, I'm listening to people as to how to identify those aspects of job creation. And then, of course, some of the educational problems that we have with our budgetary, but also somewhat dismantling our school districts that I'm trying to get my arms around so I can be a good legislator.
Well, you put them in the order of jobs and education, so we'll go to that same order. In asking then, as the challenger in this race, what would be some of the specific things? You brought up the idea also, or the point of the communication or of the perceived disconnect right now. So from improving that communication and then bringing those issues there, what are some of the specific proposals you would have for creating a healthier jobs market in the district?
Yes, thank you. That's a good question, and certainly one that I ponder almost every day. The first thing you have to do with both of those two items is restore communication and create an environment, a proactive environment where it's not always talking to people in communities and teachers about money. We have to deal with bigger issues than that. So I have a full jobs program. I've been in business all my life, small business, and I have a 5-step program that is designed to not only restore and to retain existing jobs, finds ways to reinvigorate them, but also then to start looking at calling a summit together of the 4 counties and identifying the SIC codes or things that they would like to see take place. And then in doing that, building a junior entrepreneur program through the school systems where we teach young people what really being in small business means. It's very difficult because, small business is very tricky. On Monday, you have to start thinking about your payroll on Friday. And then, of course, I'm a real strong clean energy advocate. I've been in the renewable energy industry for 40 years. I founded the American Wind Energy Association, but we do an awful lot of solar electric installations throughout the state of Michigan. And in doing that, the last aspect that I feel is very important is to make sure that we have a balance. A good environmental jobs program does not have to be in competition with a pro-jobs program. We can put that together and build clean jobs, say, like completing the wheel or the cycle for the agribusiness and getting food processed, labeled, packaged, and sold, and at times shipped off to Toronto to a good, strong market.
How would you do that with clean energy then, for example, since you mentioned that specifically?
Well, clean energy has a lot of aspects to it, and the only one that we hear the most about is the big wind turbines. And even though large wind turbines are the most inexpensive aspect of fuel compared to coal plants or even other forms of energy, nuclear that we use, it is not the only aspect of clean energy. Clean energy is dealing with not only renewable, but energy efficiency, and that energy efficiency has to transcend to commercial and residential and retail business. And then, of course, when you start working in that, there's a huge educational component that fits in there. I mean, most of the problems that we encounter when you're talking about renewable energy or clean energy and energy innovation is lack of knowledge and lack of understanding. So we would ask our community colleges to get more involved. They are involved now, and we work with Baker and West Shore and NMC up in our area, and we will continue to do that. So when I say we, I mean my goal is to get buy-in from our other legislators to help me in this task.
There has been controversy on that front, not only with the West Michigan area being the targets of those that have opposed new coal-fired power plants, but also those that don't want the wind turbine farms out X amount of distance from the Lake Michigan shore. And so there's been debates going on back and forth. How would you address that if elected to bring more of those interests together to do things more efficiently and as you, to borrow your phrase, complete that circle?
Well, I have to say that I'm an action candidate. I'm not going to Lansing to do anything but lead. So I want to sit on the Energy and Technology Committee. In fact, I am fully capable of chairing it. I want to sit on the Education Committee and the Ag Committee. So it kind of ties with the 101st. The way that you would go about is again, it's education. Coal-fired plants that have both been proposed by DTE and consumers have not been shut down or not assessed by them, unfunded, because of anything other than their own personal economics. This is not the EPA. They looked at it, and of course Cherryland tried to get involved with Rogers City, which I always scratched my head on because that's a long way from them. So we have to look at building clean energy, and when I say clean energy, I say natural gas as well. We need to get natural gas to every home in the 101st District. You know, we have areas like Crystal Mountain Ski Resort or Resort, $35,000 a month they pay for propane because they haven't got natural gas there. Now, we need to look at our laws and determine ways to help folks in certain areas that are really only have two options. That's propane, which is very expensive, and wood. And they don't have the other option of natural gas. So if we have so much natural gas, and I would like to believe that, then we should do that and also tie it to wind and solar for peaking generation that would improve the term, what do you do when the wind don't blow or the sun doesn't shine? And that, you know, I've been doing this for 40 years, and if I haven't heard that 10,000 times, I haven't heard it once. So it's, you know.
A couple of minutes left, and I do, because you brought up not only the prevalence of agriculture in that district and what it means to the economic base, but you've already mentioned the importance of the schools, and this is yet another district in the north where we see schools that are spread out, have busing challenges, have the disparity in the school funding that we see statewide, especially the farther north we become. What would be some of the specific initiatives you'd want to put in place for dealing with some of those challenges?
Well, that's a very good question, because you have a very fine line when the minute you start looking at the school budget has had public school budgets have had $1 billion cut out of them in the last 2 years. That is a huge task for our educators. So one of the things we have to do is not only get some of that, get a vehicle to get that funding back. See, I would have taken the Michigan income tax reduction, which is very small, but it's sequential. I would have taken that and earmarked that for public education. The other thing we have to do is we need to respect our teachers. I'd like to have some of our legislators go to a Dale Carnegie course and learn how to respect all people, including our teachers, because it's been a brutal struggle for some of our teachers. I talked to a teacher a couple weeks ago that was crying, and she was brought in, and she has 17 years of good reviews, and she has done everything. She's a strong teacher in one of the public school systems, and she was told that now there's going to be instead of an objective review, there's going to be a subjective review in education. Well, you have to realize when you're going to be looking at bringing the bottom up, we have over a 30% poverty rate in our districts up there. And so funding, improved environment and communication, teamwork, proactivity, and then start bringing the parents in and using some of the skills, the entrepreneurial, we'll say the junior entrepreneur, which is a little different than junior achievement, but it has some of the implications of awareness. And of course, stop dealing with the negatives and let's get proactive and bring that all the way, create the whole picture. Cyber and charter schools should be under the umbrella of public education. Should not be outsourcing and privatizing to North Carolina or Texas, people running the state of Michigan from other areas of the country. And the same scrutiny in the charter schools that are existing should be given the same scrutiny that public education gets. They should be put under the same standard.
If we were to look at then all of these issues sort of in microcosm and in the final 30 seconds for you to sum up then the message you want to leave with the voters as they get set to go to the polls, what would be that message you would want to leave with them and the message why you would be asking for their vote?
Thank you. As I said, I'm an action-type candidate. I know by doing that, sometimes you have to grab someone and get closer and talk and communicate and find common solutions. But one of the things that really bothers me is a lot of this money was taken out of our middle class working folks in the 101st District. Homestead tax credits have been cut. Children's tax credits have been cut. The EITC, or Earned Income Tax Credit, is affecting 7,000 people in the 101st District. And all that money was given to corporate America, $1.8 billion. Now, if I was going to offer $1.8 billion to corporate America, I'd say, here's your benchmarks. You create 20,000 jobs, you do this, you do that, and do the same benchmarking that public education has. And so, granted, I have to go and reach across aisles, meet Democrats and Republicans down there and find a consensus. But I truly believe that there is still passion in government. It's not all about balancing budgets, and I believe very strongly in that. There's just been a blanket thrown over it. So I'm going to find the passionate folks in Lansing when I go there, and I'm going to start talking and building coalitions. Like I have in northern Michigan, the Michigan Energy Fair, started a countywide summit for my county. I started a green team to reduce energy costs. I've done a lot of proactive things that have been folks that have not necessarily the same political persuasions that I have, but they thought it was a good idea. And I think I can do that in Lansing.
Well, we appreciate your time talking to the voters, talking on the issues, and we wish you the best of the luck with the rest of the campaign.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
And thank you as well for your time and attention here on Meet the Candidates. Our guest has been Alan O'Shea. He is the Democratic candidate in Michigan's 101st District race. All of these segments being posted to our website at WCMU.org. And as always, we leave you with a message on behalf of all of us here to exercise your right to go out and vote on Tuesday, November 6th.
This has been Meet the Candidates, a production of CMU Public Broadcasting. Both major party candidates were invited to participate in this series. For a complete listing of the air dates and times for this series, or to watch or listen to this program again, go to our website, WCMU.org.
Support of WCMU is provided by Flint Institute of Arts, presenting Drawing Together International Cartoons. The exhibition features 300 cartoons from the Iden Foundation International Competition and runs through December 30th. FlintArts.org.